So we're here with Randon. I'm a trip leader to Australia for Go Learn, the University of Utah's travel program. And we'll talk a little bit about the trip and what we do. Randon, thanks for doing this trip with us.
No, my pleasure.
It's been a tough one planning because we're going to the top end. So explain us about that.
So the top end is what Aussies call the north center of the country, essentially. The Northern Territory it's not a state, it's a territory, the north center of the country. The top end of that is the top end. So that's where we're headed, partly because that's where I lived, that's where my expertise lies, that's where Aboriginal people were left alone for a long time, that's where the gorgeous tropics are, so that's where we're headed.
Great. We're starting down in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
We're, if you want so, colonialism into the vast territory of what's now known as Australia started.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're ending up in a place that was the last of
One
the
of the last
colonized
places, yeah. Yeah, not really until, 1970 they started building a town there. That's how recent, sort of long-term.
And that's the town
settlement
we're
is.
going to, right?
Yeah, essentially. There's a mining town called Mulunbui, which we'll be staying in while we're visiting Yirrkala, which is about 10 miles away from
Yeah.
the mining town.
What was in Yirrkala?
Yirrkala it was founded as a mission in 1935 and has been an Aboriginal township since 1970. There is the Pukularnga Mulka Art Center there, which I was a manager of for 5 years. Beautiful large facility that's going to be full of amazing art displays, probably artists at work. There's a theater that I set up there. There's an archive of the films going back to the 1940s of the people that we can flip through while we're there. There's incredible history there. I mean, part of what we'll talk about is that the people of Yirrkala were the first Aboriginal people ever to sue for ownership of their land, their conquered land, essentially. And there's so much more about the place. There's a lot of history has been made in Australia from Yirrkala. And it also happens to be right on some of the most gorgeous beaches you will ever see in your life on the Gulf of Carpentaria on the north of Australia. Yeah.
I think this is the part of the trip where we really unpack, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what sort of things could we maybe expect to do up there, even though we know it's only a year out, and Aboriginal time doesn't work like this. They don't set calendars. They don't set appointments in the Outlook. So what do you think we're going to do in those 3 days there?
We're going to see what happens. Most likely thing. So when we arrive, we're going to go to the art center and check out that, get some history with some of the local people there. Probably going to head over to Shady Beach, which is right there, for some lunch and maybe see a little bit more of the area that afternoon. Then take it easy on that first day. Second and third day are when things are a bit more open. I'm imagining we're going to go learn to play didgeridoo and be involved in some song and dance related to that. If people are really interested, we can set them up to go make their own didgeridoo in the bush. We can go fishing, hunting. If they're seafood fans, you're just going to go pick up a 5-star meal just on the beach and cook it on a fire of mussels and oysters and mud crabs and stuff like that, and maybe some otter delicacies like stingray, and possibly for the less meat eating among us, they're like wild yams and bush fruits depending on what's in season. I haven't thought about that yet. And yeah, see some amazing arts and crafts and just see this beautiful place and talk about the history of it with the people who live there.
And that's it, right? We're gonna meet people.
Yeah, we are going to meet people.
Going to hang out with the locals and talk about their lives and how it may have changed over the centuries and decades since colonialism came to their town.
Yep.
Right. Being on the back end of this trip and having planned it out and booking the hotels and things, I know we have a lot more structure to it on the front end of the trip. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we're landing we're landing in Sydney, as may be expected. So we're going to see where colonization began. Check out some of the local museums. We're going to start around Circular Quay, which is where the Opera House is, one of the most iconic images of Australia. And the Royal Botanical Gardens are there, the Museum of Contemporary Art. And so depending what's on display at the time, a year from now, hoping to see some art related to where we're going. There are many places with incredible collections related to Northeast Arnhem Land. But we're only there for a day to get over jet lag and sort of see the origins of colonization. Then we're heading north to Darwin, which is right sort of north center of the country. And from there, we're going to just see some amazing, scenic, beautiful places. Litchfield National Park, Kakadu National Park, Nipmuc Gorge. We're going to be going on a boat down this river in the tropics, this amazing gorge, seeing rock art high on the walls. We're going to have local Aboriginal guides as much as possible on these trips. And again, more chances to see local art and local music. Because my expertise is in the didgeridoo, I'm spreading the word to didgeridoo fans I know, so hopefully some of them will be along, and I'm sure there will be a lot of local music involved. And so we're doing that for a few days, this big tour of all these amazing places. Uber, incredible rock art, very famous. You hike up on top of this rock formation and see this ancient rock art out and see views of these wetlands from it. It's a beautiful place. So after that, sort of more structured sightseeing part, that's when we're flying over to Northeast Arnhem Land, where all bets are off for a few days. And then from there, we're flying over to Cairns, where we'll take the scenic rail up to Kuranda, sort of rainforest town, seeing waterfalls in the tropics. And this is more rainforest. So where we'll be in the Northern Territory and around Darwin and Yirrkala, Northeast Arnhem Land, is more semi-tropical. But when we go over to Cairns, we're in rainforest country. It's a totally different, incredible environment. So first day around Kuranda, taking the sky rail back, so you're actually like riding this thing over the canopy of the rainforest. And then the last day we have planned is going up to the Daintree rainforest, like going right up into the rainforest, and incredible beaches along there as well, and spas if anybody's interested in that. There's a beautiful, amazing place up there. And then we'll have a farewell, probably barbecue, and send people on their way.
Yeah.
Where they'll have the option to do a lot else from there, because there's so much. We tried, as you know, in the planning, there were a lot of things I wanted to do that we just can't afford to fit in to the time and budget. So from Cairns, we'll say, the Great Barrier Reef is right there. So you could stick around and do that. And we really wanted to go to Uluru, or Ayers Rock, the big famous rock, one of the other most iconic sites of Australia in the center of the country, but just couldn't fit that in. So we'll tell people, Cairns Airport will fly you right there if you want to do that. So we'll be leaving people there, but with lots of tips if they have the time. There's a lot else they can do.
Would you agree that this trip not only speaks to someone who's for the first time ever coming to Australia, but even if someone has been 10 times, there's so much more that we pack in. It's for the photographer. Mm-hmm. It's for the musician for sure. It's for the anthropologist. Mm-hmm. It's
art collector, art fan.
Art collectors.
Yeah. And I've even had, like kind of following up on what you said there a little bit, I had an Australian friend from Melbourne say, "Oh, I want to go." So again, we're going places like many Australians have never gone, especially the Northeast Arnhem Land part.
When we built this trip, it took us quite some time. It took us a lot of labor, but we made it. We made it happen, and we planned it all out. So, what is so hard if you were wanting to do it on your own? What are the things that you can't duplicate if you were on your own trying to get to Australia?
The biggest thing is the access to Northeast Arnhem Land. You can book a flight there, but if you don't know people and really know what's going on there, you can have what a lot of people have, a pretty surface level tourist experience going there briefly, or you end up staying at the hotel in the mining town and looking around a little bit, as opposed to going with somebody. I mean, this is the whole point of the Go Learn program, is go with somebody who knows and who can show you around. So I lived in this place for 5 years, being, an intruder, but a part of this culture in this place. And so you're getting this local guide that has access to the people and knows the people and is going to get you places that just people don't normally have access to at all. But then a big part of that as well, throughout the trip, before we get there, I'm going to be doing orientation the entire time. And this is something that in the United States, I mean, I can honestly say I'm the only person I can think of who can do this for you. Give you Yolngu culture, language lessons, and kinship background and history, and tell you about the meaning and some of the art and all that. I'm going to be doing that coaching on the way as we get there. And if we can in Sydney, see art related to that would start some of that story. And when we're in Darwin, before we get to Northeast Arnhem Land, I'm going to take you to places a little bit off the beaten path there and introduce you to some Yolngu Aboriginal people who live there before we get out to Arnhem Land. So that people are going to be getting throughout the trip this sort of orientation to the sort of deep immersion part of the trip that comes later on, just for those 3 days. So that when they get there, they're going to be a little clued in as to what's going on, and they're going to be able to say, well, mein muck, to the people there, rather than just showing up and starting from scratch like I did the first time. The Go Learn Explore the Top End of Australia trip is July 6th through 17th, 2019.
And for more information and how to sign up, golearn.utah.edu.
We hope you come along.